Hi everybody, welcome back. Tony again with Shinsho Yoga. And this week I would like to talk a little bit about yoga and surfing and how the two of them complement each other, not just physically, but spiritually. Before we get into it, I will link down below a TED Ed 5-minute explanation on the history of surfing, which, if you're not familiar with it, would be good to watch. It's quick and concise and gives you a little bit more about it, because I'm going to talk basically how the two parallel each other. I will do more videos at a later time, more on the physical aspect, but today I just want to talk more about the history and the spirituality of it and why the two go hand in hand. So both surfing and yoga are spiritualities. Right? Maybe in the West, maybe in America, they're not. Yoga, for its most part, has just become an exercise, that people do. It's kind of a stretch. It's going to have all different types you do, goat yoga, wine yoga. I've seen, heavy metal yoga, all kinds of things they've thrown in. And surfing has become a commoditized sport. Competitions and all kinds of brands and brand ambassadors and promotion, etc., etc. That's not how either of them started, and that's not what the core of either of them are about. Both of them are spiritualities. Both of them have been suppressed by colonizers, and both had a resurgence that was embraced by the West and then transformed to kind of meet their culture. So I've talked about in some of my other videos about the history of yoga. Yoga goes back between 5,000 to 7,000 years. It was an everyday spiritual practice of the people. The majority of major religions in the Eastern philosophies have some link to it, like Buddhism directly comes from yoga, right? The Buddha studied with yogis and Brahmins to develop his way, right? And this was an everyday practice that people did. Yoga was the spirituality of the people. It was not meant for the elite or anything like that. Then when the British came in the late 1600s, they banned the practice of yoga and basically burned up all their texts and said, you can't practice this anymore, this is heathen religions. And then in the late 1800s, the man by the name of Christian Manchaya came in and was like, hey, I want to bring yoga back, because there was that resurgence of Indian independence, and came up with the vinyasa, which is what most modern yoga is based off of to this day. And with that, more of the spirituality of yoga started to be refound and redeveloped and retaught. Surfing is almost the same story. Surfing was a spiritual practice of the Polynesian and Hawaiian people. Right? They were seafaring people. They lived on islands. Their life was the ocean. The ocean was everything to them, and they had an undue respect for it and everything that came from the ocean. So one of the practices that they came up with was wave riding as a way to be able to commune with the ocean and thank the ocean for all it did. The practice was a practice of the people. It wasn't reserved only for the chiefs. Everyone did it. Men, women. The type of boards they rode and things like that would have really been dependent also on kind of where you were in the culture at the time. But everyone surfed. And Hawaii, of course, was the focus of it, where they really developed it. And they mainly did it naked. They would go out in the ocean nude, right? Why not? They lived in the area for it, and surfed and made a communion with the ocean and learned to understand the ocean and become one with it without sounding, hopefully, too hokey like a spiritual Hallmark card. Then the colonizers came. At that time, it was us Americans, but we didn't call ourselves colonizers in the 1800s. And Hawaii offered rich resources, and they did a lot of things to be able to subvert the local culture. They sent in the missionaries who said surfing was bad, it was heathen, and the fact that men and women are naked together doing this is just all completely wrong. So they made them quit surfing, make them all be clothed, and surfing was squashed. And eventually America annexed the Hawaiian Islands, and it became a state. And then Westerners came in because some of the people in Hawaii wanted to bring back their surfing, and Westerners came in and saw the surfing that was done and brought it to the west coast of America, to California, and boom, it exploded from there. Just as what happened in India with yoga, how it moved to America around the same time. So in the 50s and the 60s, surfing became a huge thing in America. In the 50s and the 60s, yoga started becoming a huge thing in America. They parallel each other. They're both spiritualities. They're both spiritualities of the people. They are both designed to have you become the best version of yourself. And for those that don't surf, or maybe someone who's watching this does surf, and all they know is, maybe they've seen Kelly Slater, who's, world champion, and go, I want to be like him. Kelly Slater's a phenomenal surfer. I mean, he's the GOAT, greatest of all time. He is really phenomenal. But we're talking about what this is about. When I go out surfing, I often like to surf alone. The reason is, I want to be able to focus on the ocean and the water and do exactly like the ancient Hawaiians did, to the best of my ability. I am not an ancient Hawaiian, but I am a spiritual man. And I want to be able to commune and become one with that water. Nothing will teach you more about nature, in my opinion, than learning to ride the swell of the earth. In surfing, you are riding the energy of nature. Right? The way you ride a wave, if you're riding it properly, is you're riding at the nexus point of the peak and expulsion of its power, right? So where you ride in the wave is the wave breaking here, and here's the face, though it's about to break, here is where it's breaking. You're right here. You're at the nexus of the power of the ocean for that moment. And when you do everything right in surfing, it's like you're doing nothing at all. When you've learned all of the skills of what to do, it just happens. It's a flow. Just as your yoga practice is a flow. When you're in your flow, when you're focused on your breath and moving with your breath, one posture to the next, 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 right in it. Right where you are, being present in that moment. Same thing in surfing. When you're surfing, if you are not present in that moment, there's a little difference than in yoga. Yoga, you're not being present in your moment. You might fall, you may hurt yourself in the posture, but you're probably not going to die. The ocean is deadly, and it will kill you if you don't pay attention to it, you don't respect it, and you don't understand it. You can't be out there and be all over the place, You have to be focused on what you're doing, and you have to breathe. You have to let all those things on the shore that bothered you go by. I had a friend of mine a little while back. He was out surfing and came in, and he was a little worked up. I said, hey, what's going on, man? He goes, so-and-so out here brought all this garbage out there with him and just complained and complained and complained. I'm out of here. And I got what he was talking about. It wasn't the fact that the guy had problems. It's so you go out surfing, you focus on what you're doing. Same thing when you come on your mat. You focus on what you're doing. You breathe and you follow your breath. When I'm out there surfing, that breath is the most important thing, because you need a big, strong one when you go underwater. You got to be able to hold it. You got to have that lung capacity, and you have to stay calm. Because again, the ocean will kill you and not think twice. It'll just keep on rolling. So surfing and yoga are more than just the physical aspects of the two that can parallel each other. There's a lot of things in yoga that help you with surfing. That they complement each other, but they complement each other in a much deeper and much different way. And they are both spiritualities of native peoples that has meant for you to just kind of be the best version of yourself, to focus on where you are. The difference is one happens on the water and one happens on land. But the history of the two go hand in hand. And the spirituality, the eventual outcome, is the same. O-sensei, the founder of a martial art called Aikido, which I've studied for many years, said, there are many paths to the top of the mountain, but the summit is all the same. Surfing was the Polynesians' way to the top of that mountain. Yoga was the Indian way to the top of that mountain. The paths are different. The summit is the same, but these paths are pretty well paralleled. So in upcoming weeks, I'm going to do a little bit more on yoga and surfing. I'm going to offer a little warm-up yoga-ish flow. I'm going to include some things from martial arts too that I like to do before I go out in the water, just to do as a little pre-warm-up. And I'll address more of those things. So, as always, breathe and follow your breath. As your thoughts arise, acknowledge them, allow them to pass by, and return to the breath. Thanks for watching. Namaste.